head of Duckbill with a report from White Lightning TV. The government surgeon general behind the plot to inject demonic fluids into the veins of unsuspecting Americans has been found out. His Illuminati membership card was found at the bottom of the Charles River. The hunt for Shashi Parmar continues, a man who went from hero to evil villain overnight. He was hailed for his leadership in the San Francisco recall election that removed 3 ultra-progressive, woke school board members. Overnight, his image changed. Thanks to an anonymous tip to the Department of Homeland Security, he is now hunted for his relationship with the anti-American firebrand, crazy Prime Minister of India, Suraj Udala, his roommate at Harvard. Because of the anger in our country over the downing of an American spy plane that India said violated its airspace, Indians are leaving the country. Those who didn't manage to catch Air India before flights to and from India were shut down are fleeing to Canada, a layover until they can secure a connecting flight to India. Based on the tip, members of Homeland Security raided Parmar's room. They found pro-Suraj Udala pamphlets, buttons and banners, and other paraphernalia glorifying this despot. And this is how he pays America back? The America that educated him? An America that rescued his immigrant family from India, one colossal cesspool. The words painted in large black letters, Miri Gund Ko Chumo America, translated, America kiss my ass, on the wall of this ungrateful wretch's apartment. And get this, there were pagan idols present. He's into elephant worship. Wow. In other news, Warren Shipp, the former columnist, has launched a frivolous suit against the San Francisco Chrysalis, the newspaper where he worked for 20 years. The malcontent, professional injustice collector and grievance peddler claimed he was fired because he supported the San Francisco school board members who instituted a lottery, thereby replacing the testing system to make it easy for Black and Latino students, whose test scores remain pitifully behind, to gain entry to the highest-ranking public schools in the city. A new report tells of the increasing anti-Semitism in the United States. Well, if the sons and daughters of Abraham would stop launching Soros-financed space lasers whose aim is to destroy California forests, these threats would stop. Hats off to the Star-Spangled Boys, patriots who disrupted a gay pride parade. Maybe one day someone will explain to me why passing monkeypox around is something to have a parade about. Many of our woke critics have been offended by our referring to Mexican Americans as wetbacks. If you want political correctness, try MSNBC or CNN. We here at WLN TV will call them as we see them.
Come in, quickly. They almost got me. They chased me and almost caught up with me. Call the agency that's arranging for Indians to hide until they can leave the country, and they're referring to you because you're listed as a conductor. I informed them that you'd be an unlikely host because I started the petition that lost you your job at the San Francisco Chrysalis. We were upset with your support of the 3 school board members, Gabriela Lopez, Allison Collins, and Elvin Liga. They said that you'd forgotten about it and was willing to assist me until I could find a way to leave the country, get to Canada, and then from there to India. I got out of the car and ran. I hit the Golden Gate Park. He said some dogs. I lost them. I just spent 2 nights there. Mark Twain was right. The coldest winter he ever spent was the summer in San Francisco. Almost froze. Somehow made it to your apartment.
Well, you're safe now. Are you hungry?
Am I? I haven't eaten in 2 days. Why are you being so nice to me? We objected to your taking the side of those radicals on the school board.
Oh, I don't bear any grudges. You know, we blacks love everybody but each other. We just got authentic forgiveness. I got some hummus, some pita bread. You know, I would have ordered something from an Indian restaurant, but as you know, Homeland Security slows down. And ordering food from an Indian restaurant would only arouse suspicion.
Yes, I understand. Fine.
All right, well, you can stay here until we get you to Canada, which is ironic.
Ironic why?
We used to be passengers on the Underground Railroad. Now we're conductors. Oh, we blacks are used to helping out members of mild minority groups only to be betrayed. We're the permanent caretakers of America. I mean, we're always in our choir robes on TV, giving America pep talks, soothing America's pains, telling the world we are one. We're having dance to America's Scarlett O'Hara, maid and psychiatrist.
I don't follow.
Minorities make alliance with us until their admission to the White Club is accepted. This happened with the Jews, the Japanese, the Irish, the Italians, and now you guys.
What?
Like this Ramaswamy dude who's running for president on the backs of blacks.
His name is Ramaswamy.
Ramaswamy, Ramaswamy, Ramaswamy.
Debate! Ramaswamy merely supports the nuclear family. He wants to see more marriage in the inner city. Stable two-parent households are the key to success in our country.
The rate of births to white single mothers has accelerated. But little attention is paid to that issue because whites fear replacement. I mean, that's what this whole abortion issue is all about. Powerful white men insist that the wombs of white women are their personal property. And they're demanding that the sole purpose of white women is that of replenishing the race. Lest the whites be overwhelmed by the diversity horde.
Ramaswamy should serve as a role model for black youth. If they study hard, they can achieve what he's achieved. He has hundreds of millions of dollars.
He wouldn't have a nickel if it weren't for the civil rights movement. His parents would still be stuck in India.
You're upset because he said he'd eliminate affirmative action by executive order if elected.
That's a lie. Like Justice Thomas, who right now is probably staked out in the parking lot at Walmart thinking new friendship. Ramaswamy received affirmative action.
Does who?
Well, the New Republic says he received a fellowship dedicated to helping immigrants and children of immigrants pursue graduate school. The fellowship came from the Soros family. Oh, see, he paid Wikipedia to have never moved from his bio. Ramaswamy.
I wish we would call him that. It's juvenile.
Of course, Ramaswamy and Indians like him aren't the only ones to portray the movement. Without the movement, there would still be covenants preventing Jews from buying property in some neighborhoods. You know, the Jews and the blacks had an alliance beginning in the 1900s, when both protested police brutality. In the 1960s, they went white on us. Oh, the Italians were our allies up until World War I. They were white on us. Almost. The Irish were treated as a separate race. They were called Hibernians. Now, as indentured servants in the 1700s, they joined blacks in revolts against rich landowners. They went white. The Japanese and the blacks had alliance in Los Angeles. They went white. Brown and black gays launched the gay revolution at Stonewall. What they get? LGBTQ was among the most aggressive of the gentrifiers. I mean, they're part of this ethnic cleansing drive. And some Native American tribes held us as slaves. Yet these groups come running to us whenever the white man decides to sick miles on them. Some geopolitical conflict or culture war, begging us to hide that blacks can't depend upon what he calls blacks' junior allies. He argues that intersectionality is bullshit and that blacks must hold alone. I mean, the very idea of the model minority was created not by a member of the model minority, but by white public intellectuals. Now, prominent was a Newsweek article from 1971 congratulating Japanese Americans for outwhiting the whites. It was done to sow division, to divide and conquer. And those Chinese at Lowell High School fell for it. I mean, if the United States gets into a shooting war with China in the South China Sea or Taiwan, they'll put this model minority into camps. After the scare from that surveillance balloon from China, they probably already have the contingency plan to round up all the Chinese Americans. Or anyone who looks Asian. And that balloon from China got to America's head. You know, Scott Nakagawa got it right. Asian Americans rode the coattails of the Civil Rights Movement, benefiting from affirmative action, the Voting Rights Act, and the Higher Education Act of 1965. Don Tamaki put it another way. African Americans opened the door, and everybody else walked through it. You know, one could say that Asian American history begins in 1968, when yellows, blacks, Chicanos, and American Indian students struck San Francisco State College and the University of California, Berkeley, when those institutions resisted the inauguration of ethnic studies. But where's that solidarity at now?
You know, that's the kind of simplistic thinking that got you in trouble. Indians and other Asian Americans are tired of making sacrifices in the name of racial balancing and diversity.
Which is why the right found it easy to use you as a prop. But you're not the only one. On the East Coast, the right astroturfed an organization called Parent Leaders for Accelerated Curriculum and Education. They successfully ended the lottery for admission to elite New York high schools, which means fewer chances for blacks and Latinos to gain admission. The same racist language was used out here that was used in New York. Black and brown parents don't work hard enough. Their parents don't care about education. Just another example of how talking points offended their minority shadow puppets. Wherever they might be. Now, the Times quoted Chinese American Yang Tin-Shu as place NYC's leader. She's the co-founder. She and a Chinese American woman named Jean Han are the only Chinese American members of the board. The other 5 members of the executive board are white, including the co-founder of this group that is so devoted to Chinese American concerns. An ex-New York policeman named Vito Novella. Yeah, the only difference between gophers like you and Herschel Walker is he has physical brain damage. Yours is a metaphysical brain damage.
Your paranoia should be considered a condition of a metaphysical brain concussion. Yeah. The removal of those ultra-progressives from the school board had to do with their incompetence, not their race. That's just a crutch that people like you use. Concentrate on the crime situation in your neighborhood instead of creating strawmen.
Is that so?
Yeah.
Well, there is one silver lining to the permanent white mob. With their baseball bats, tire irons, brass knuckles, bear spray, AK-47s and pots too. See, now that the wandering white pack is mad at you guys, engines. This gives the conservative members no time to eat some time off, so they can get back to business. Aligning themselves with white reactionary forces to keep black people down. And crime. Members of model minorities get all the profits in inner city vice, while black criminals get all the casualties.
What?
Well, blacks distribution and device. While members of my minority are on the supply side. Regardless of the shows you see on TV, most of the money's on the supply side. I mean, members of your tribe, Indians, run the motels where prostitution takes place. In fact, wasn't one of your cousins found operating one in Oakland?
Yeah, he said he didn't know what was going on.
Immigrants from Yemen, Mexicans, and Chinese bring drugs in the black neighborhoods in Oakland and San Francisco. And these are the Chinese whom you don't hear about. No, all you hear about are the valedictorians. Besides, those whites that are giving Chinese Americans a high five for keeping an education white. We'll turn on them in a fucking nanosecond. Now, historically, the Chinese in California have been associated with disease. In the 19th century, Chinese immigrants were blamed for smallpox. Now, China virus and Kung flu. 65% of the attacks on Asian Americans are perpetrated by whites. But blacks get blamed because the media are soft on white crime. But now, since these racists can't tell the difference between Asian American groups, Filipinos, Vietnamese, and Japanese Americans get attacked too. And now they're mad at you. Indians. In this country, one always wonders who's going to be the next victim of the roving white mob. The condition of minorities in the United States is one of precarity. It's like a movie. And when someone hides from a serial killer, and you can hear the killer's footsteps from where you're hiding. And you pray you're not detected. You come close to where you're hiding. And leaves. You have a reprieve temporarily because you know he'll return.
Diane Yap of the Manhattan Institute said that it's blacks that are attacking Asians. Yeah, I guess she's also a prop. She was educated. She holds a PhD in mathematics from the University of Hawaii in Manoa and a BA from the University of California, Berkeley. So she knows what she's talking about.
The Manhattan Institute is a Nazi front. Their right-wing money is behind a character named Christopher Rufo, who has started the anti-woke hysteria, which has been so successful that millions of ignorant whites fear woke more than losing Social Security. Their chief spokesperson is John McWhorter, who said blacks need to be gene spliced or given a serum to make them smart. Gene splicing is seen as a way of eliminating biologically inferior.
Well, Porter's black. I guess you call him Uncle Tom.
No! I'd say that if he were in South Africa in the pre-Mandela days, they would place a tire on his neck and set fire to it. But that's a little too drastic for me. I'd use a donut. As for this Diane Yap, yeah, she's just another one of the Manhattan Institute's proxies. An ornament. I'll get you some clean clothes and prepare the food top. You can take a shower. Hey, what happened to your family? Are they all right?
Well, when things began to deteriorate, they left the country. Except for Kala, my sister. The mom can't tell the difference between her and a black American woman, so she's safe. But for the rest of my family, our lighter colored skins gave us away. I tried to join them, but I had to hide because of what my former roommate said about me. He framed me. Somehow he got into my apartment and put all those pro-Indian nationalist materials in there and called into the Department of Homeland Security, and reported me as a foreign agent working for Siraj Udala. This madman was making enemies for India all over the world.
You were Siraj's roommate in Harvard?
That was for one semester only. He partied every night. And when he didn't do that, he smoked so much dope. He never cleaned up after himself. He always had his servants do it. One time, I walked in, and he and his friends were having an orgy. I couldn't concentrate on my studies. I have nothing to do with India. I'm an American. I'm always able to answer all the questions on Jeopardy. But now, I have to reach Canada and go to India. Backwards, primitive country.
Oh, why not choose another destination?
We have relatives in India. We can stay with them until this anti-Indian stereotypes are up.
Who's going to look after your family's property?
Some black neighbors. It's my former roommate that got me in this mess. It had to be him. The writing's in Hindi.
What does he have against you?
I slept with his wife and he found out. I didn't know. It just happened.
Now, yo people used to get your dander up whenever someone called you a nigger. And now you got one hiding you. And your sister passing for a black woman. That's the new one.
Always embarrassed our family. She was all right. Till she read some American writer named Bell Hooks. A woman who's never heard of capitalization. I was riding around town on a motorcycle. She's put out an obnoxious rap record. She's given up chai for a vanilla bean cappuccino. She's dating some black guy, anything to be. I didn't mean to offend you.
It's okay. I'm used to it. Yeah, people like you just can't help yourself. Hey, don't you notice that white guys are hanging with white women? Yeah. And they want to try something new. So many Indian and Asian American women are marrying white guys. That one group, Japanese Americans, is on the verge of extinction. And you guys don't say nothing. Yet you're upset about a black guy dating your sister.
It's not that. The family wants her to marry her own kind.
That's so Taliban. Men who deny women a university education. You and your friends date women of different nationalities. You date white women. What about this white woman that put you up to help them start the recall?
That's not true. We were wary of wokeness, cancel culture, identity politics. We wanted children to get an education.
American education boasts that maybe 25 white men are responsible for all the achievements of mankind. And in order for us to improve ourselves, we must imitate them. Makes you wonder why the feminists who edits Mother Jones backed the recall of those who wanted to change the curriculum. Blacks and Latinos find their traditions absent from curriculum, so they drop out. A white power curriculum that continues to teach what a great deal slavery was for blacks. Or how lucky blacks were to be rescued from paganism. A curriculum that honors Nefer Sarah, who turned California into one giant brothel for Indian women. And what about Christopher Columbus, who tied up an Indian girl and raped her? Bragged that he turned her to his whore. But yet they honor this pervert with a portrait of the nation's capital rotunda. The only thing black kids got from school integration was arrest records. Because police patrol the schools. I mean, black kids get arrested for truancy or talking back to the teacher. They even handcuff a 6-year-old black girl. Black kids are subject to disproportionate suspensions and disciplinary actions.
Chinese and Indian parents want their children to learn proper English to succeed. They want to relieve themselves of the guttural argument that they hear in the streets.
But they wouldn't have that precious fucking English had it not been the Indians.
What on earth are you talking about?
It's called English for Angles. The language that Angles speak. This is a cover-up. In order to deny that darker-skinned people had something to do with its creation, linguists call English part of the Indo-European languages. The roots of English lie in Sanskrit. You're Indian and you don't know that.
You sound like my sister, Kala. But nobody else is interested in that kind of stuff.
Well, that's because you're into self-annihilation. The ruling culture, which usually occupies a country, wants those whom it dominates to adopt its culture and its ways. Now that the Anglo-Celtic domination of North America is ended, and their children talk like Tupac Shakur and 50 Cent. Oh, they're calling on people from Nigeria, Shanghai, Beijing, and India like you to save them. Just like the Russian Federation called on the Syrians and people from Belarus to defeat the Ukrainians. Black and Latino kids were harassed a lot. I mean, this high school is supposed to be so great. Chinese kids, the children of immigrants, were making fun of the black kids. They thought it was funny to imitate the KKK, even pretended to be members. I mean, Allison College had to teach them the Klan is a terrorist group.
I don't believe a single thing that she says. Columnist Heather Knight of the San Francisco Chronicle had it right.
What'd she say?
She described Allison Collins and Gabriela Lopez's antics as a sideshow and a circus. This thing about renaming the high school?
And that idea wasn't even theirs. But by dismissing the renaming of high schools, isn't Heather Knight defending the reputation of George Washington and Negro Sarah, who enslaved her black sisters and raped her Native American sisters? What kind of fucking feminist solidarity is that? No, Allison says that the terrorist wing of the far-right doxed and trolled on the dark web. All three got doxed. I mean, someone put a video online with swastikas that included effigies of the three of them. Gabriela Lopez, Faruka Malika, and Ann Collins. Hanged. Oh, people started showing up outside their homes. Tweets started providing information about where their kids went to school and where their family members worked. They harassed people who supported them online. Dangerous alt-right insurrectionists like Charlie Kirk attacked them. Kirk is on the hate watch list of the Southern Poverty Law Center. They even harassed Gabriella's parents. She got death threats. One said that she should be raped and decapitated. That her head should be placed on a stake. And none of the smart-ass Eastern columnists who attacked the three at USA Today, The Atlantic, The New Republic, Fox News, or The Times mentioned these threats. It's because two are women of color. And the harassment hasn't stopped.
Collins probably exaggerated in order to gain sympathy for herself.
Exaggerated.
Yeah.
Well, what do you make of those white militiamen that are showing up armed at school board meetings and intimidating school board members in Texas and elsewhere?
That's the fault of the Eastern elite for calling them deplorable. Those men feel alienated. Members of the educated classes should invite them over for a beer and good cigars. Yeah.
Well, Allison was condemned the same what many have said. That some Chinese Americans yearn to be accepted by the white mainstream. Hey, but if that's being the stereotype, then what about Chinese American former board member Ann Sue's remarks about blacks? She said, from my very limited exposure in the past 4 months to the challenges of educating marginalized students, especially in the black and brown community. I see one of the biggest challenges as being the lack of family support for those students. Now, while Asian, black, and Latino groups asked for her resignation, groups that called out Collins for her alleged racist remarks were either silent about Sue or supported her. Why is that a racist double standard? And Sue was defeated when she ran for school board, so it's all right. I mean, high-tech billionaires own San Francisco. Shit, but if you read Eastern columnists, you think San Francisco's population is made up of flower children. And it's the scene of a continuous cellular love. And all the hippies and blacks have left San Francisco. They can't afford to live here.
Buttermilk Duckbill here with breaking news from White Lightning Network. What began as a war over terrorists has now escalated. The United States became upset because India abstained when the United Nations voted to condemn Russia for its invasion of Ukraine. Then, India continued to buy oil from Russia. Now, India's new Prime Minister, Suraj Udawla, comes in and says that World War III is only a world war if the rest of the world want to be suckers again, as they did in the other two European family quarrels, World Wars I and II. This wild man is asking for reparations from England for what he calls genocide committed under the Raj, British rule from 1858 to 1947. The Prime Minister of India recalled its ambassador from Washington after Washington demanded an explanation for this madman's downing of an American spy jet. Anti-Indian sentiment has reached the West Coast, and Indian-American citizens are advised to remain indoors. San Francisco International is packed with Indian citizens attempting to fly to India. The military parade held in Mumbai the other day, in which the crazed leader viewed troops and military armament, including robots marching by, didn't help allay attitudes towards India by the civilized world. Here are the headlines again. Senator McFuddy has introduced the Fugitive Indian Act, which would make it a crime for anyone to harbor an Indian. Even though Canadians hate Indians, those who haven't fled to India have arrived in Canada.
What time is it?
It's noon. I made lunch.
Must have been drained.
Damn. All the blacks on the sports page. You should read this.
What?
You see, I thought you were this white lady with type. She was co-chair of Citizens America with you. Yeah. There were pictures of the two of you in the newspaper. Cheek to cheek, smile in the dog each other's eyes, all cuddling. She now says that you were using the school board as a stepping stone for higher office. She went on to say that you're proudly part of the fifth column and lead with Suraj Udawla, the terrorist running India. She sold your ass down the river.
What? She says white people of San Francisco should now make alliances with Chinese Americans, the only minority to be trusted? I thought she was my friend.
She played you for a joke. Now, see, she believes that parents should design school curriculum. You know, that way they can pass on their ignorance to students students, resulting in another generation of ignorant bigots. If we're really lucky, we'll have Moms for Liberty take control of the public educational school system. Moms for Liberty is also listed as a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center. You know, Frank Chin said the Chinese were the Uncle Toms of American ethnic groups. To quote him, white America is as securely indifferent about us as men as plantation owners were about their loyal house niggas. House niggas is what America is made of us. Admiring us for being patient, submissive, aesthetic, passive, accommodating. What whites call Confucianists, dreaming us up a goofy version of Chinese culture to preserve and becoming the white male's dream minority. Alison Collins agreed with outrage when she said the same thing. She claimed that Asian Americans are house niggas. And claimed they use white supremacist thinking to get ahead. Yet Collins' tweets are viewed as anti-Asian. And these were not racist designations, but class designations. If some privileged members of ethnic groups are house niggas, then those that are underprivileged are field niggas. I mean, house niggas serve their master family inside the house. Field niggas pick cotton. That doesn't mean house niggas are passive. And especially a cruel master might find poison in his food.
Unlike Collins, Sue apologized. As for Frank Chin, he is a racist.
A racist? Frank Chin is a key member of the Chinese American avant-garde. The scholars in China and Japan know his work, but it's not taught at Lowell, which lacks their Chinese Americans to be passive. I mean, the whites lynch the Chinese, deport them, seize their land, use their women as sex slaves, confine them to ghettos. And some Chinese still want to be Anglican. I mean, they still want to fit in, to get liked, to get patted on the head. And they get used by the white right or the neo-white at Harvard. They use people like you.
What do you mean, being used?
A Jewish man, Edward Bloom, got Supreme Court members on the way out of town to party with billionaires to end affirmative action. Now, though it was supposed to be done on behalf of Chinese students, no Chinese American student testified against affirmative action. And the media and the Northeastern colonists who supported Bloom neglected to mention that affirmative action benefits white women mostly. Oh, they failed to mention the billionaires for whom Bloom was a kind of door-to-door salesman for. I mean, he was backed by the Searle Freedom Trust, the Skate Foundation, and the Bradley Foundation, which is connected to the eugenics movement. Man, Bloom said nothing about ending affirmative action in the military. See, it's okay if blacks and users cannon fodder, but not okay for them to vote and go to school. Man, the press conference declaring victory over Hispanic and black students featured Ed Bloom, not the Chinese students he was supposed to help. So, I mean, how do Asian Americans feel about affirmative action? 70% support affirmative action. And look at this. From the nonprofit Asian American Advocacy Fund. They said the ruling used the group as pawns. They said the white supremacist agenda behind these lawsuits used the small number of Asian Americans against affirmative action as pawns in their efforts. Ed Bloom forced Harvard to turn over 100,000 pages of documents and could not produce a single case of discrimination. But Ed Bloom could be considered the fifth white man to play Charlie Chan. I mean, here again, immigrants can use as pawns. If anti-Semitism continues to rise, I might have to hide Ed Bloom's ass. I mean, he's a member of one of the most persecuted groups in the history of the world. Yeah, they said expressing solidarity with the oppressed. Bloom goes around the country investigating whether blacks, browns, or women are getting things because of race or gender. And as in the case of those who call themselves conservative, Bloom views blacks as the ringleaders of woke, CRT, and identity politics. And like them, he doesn't want black people to vote. Like you, he wants to get brownie points from white people.
You can't accuse those of us who caused you to lose your column of taking money from billionaires. Thousands of high-tech workers are being laid off. This might happen to me. If I can get a job in Canada, I might remain there. I hear Indians are living well in Toronto. I'm not getting rich by insisting that Lowell High School maintain high standards.
Look, maybe not your group, Parents for Merit, but the other group got money. The one headed by C. Barrage, an Indian immigrant, an FOB, who hasn't the slightest idea about the black 400-year struggle for freedom.
You're not making sense. What are you talking about?
Neighbors for a Better San Francisco advocacy received $600,000 from San Francisco hedge fund manager William Obendorf, who gave $900,000 to Neighbors for a Better San Francisco in 2021. You know, Obendorf also gave $1 million to Republican Senator Mitch McConnell's PAC in 2020. Yeah, this group is also funded by Silicon Valley area tech investors led by Arthur Rock, a 95-year-old billionaire that was an early investor in Intel and Apple.
Yeah.
Arthur Rock alone put in $500,000. Another contributor, David O'Fax, a San Francisco-based tech investor and former chief operating officer of PayPal. Some of these billionaires are connected to William Shockley of Intel. He believed blacks are intellectually inferior to whites and Asians.
No.
Another contributor, Peter Thiel, who's the co-founder of PayPal, but Thiel goes around the country addressing white nationalist conventions. And he's saying none of this money made a difference.
It was the will of the voters that got those people recalled. People like you see conspiracies behind every action. It's because of provocative comments like that our group took up a petition to get you fired from the San Francisco Chrysalis. Your sarcastic disregard for those who merely wanted their children to get an education. The Chinese claim that the school board members had gotten their priorities mixed up. Instead of engaging in racial symbolism, as Gary Camille put it, they should have been concentrating on getting their children back into school.
Even if it meant their children caught COVID. If they wanted schools open, but there were no vaccines available. They want their children to be little facsimile Anglos, even if it kills them. And I bet if there was a school named after Mao Zedong, these pro-Taiwan Chinese parents would have a fit, you know? You should get to that.
Miss Chip, this is Lester Bright, your neighbor. One of the few who actually reads your column. Big fan. Well, now, I'm a member of the Citizen Watch now.
Yeah, the neighborhood group.
Right. We're looking for, well, we're the turban control. Yeah, you know, it's against the law to harbor an Indian. Yeah, and someone said that they saw an Indian enter the building. There's a strong odor of curry. Do you smell it? It's like that. You know, not all Indians wear turbans. Well, to be an Indian, the turban is in your heart.
Now, listen, Lester, I'm telling you right now, me, I would never.
All right, well, we're in this together. That's my point. We must be vigilant in the face of the enemy.
Oh, wow, look at the time, Lester.
Before I leave, Miss Chip, is it all right if I call you bro?
Lester, I already have a brother.
Yeah, Warren, you know, we're fighting this thing together.
Yeah, but not his family.
Okay. Goodbye, Mr. Chip.
Keep hope alive. Oh, no. You can go out now. Yeah, I was a member of the neighborhood watch check in the South. He said, someone saw an Indian enter the building. See, now that you are an unfavored minority, you're getting a taste of what we've been getting for hundreds of years.
Race, must you always fall back on your usual pathetic whining about your victimhood and victimology? Besides, why do you keep associating me with Indians? I grew up in Fresno. I'm a Yankees fan.
Fresno is one of those incubators for white supremacy. Ronnie Hall says that Indians have brought their caste ideas with them to America. And the racism we blacks have been facing for 400 years now. For you, we're the untouchables. Or as they refer to in India, Dalits.
I've never heard of this author. You just can't turn it off, can you? The citizens of San Francisco voted, and your side lost.
You don't have to believe Hall. You'll believe Apple.
What does Apple have to do with this?
See, Apple had to update its general employee conduct policy to explicitly prohibit discrimination on the basis of caste. Because a low caste engineer accused two higher caste bosses of blocking his career. And that caste shit is already promised. As if blacks don't have enough races to contend with, now casteism has been imported.
Hello.
Hi.
Melody Wells, we had an appointment for an interview.
How was today?
That was today. I can't reschedule, so
No, come in.
great thing.
What newspaper did you say you were from?
The East Bayview. I'm writing a story about the recall. I thought you'd be celebrating. Where is the champagne? The cake?
I don't know what you're talking about.
You didn't read. Right?
San Francisco District Attorney Brooke Jenkins is facing criticism over work linked to the group funding the Chase Boudin recall. And I figured she was on the take.
She accepted $153,000 from this billionaire, Bill Overdorf.
This guy's everywhere. This is the same joker that funneled the money to neighbors who better San Francisco. The group behind the recall of the 3 school board members and District Attorney Chase Boudin.
The former district attorney Boudin tried to do something to end the racist bail system where blacks were paying more bail than whites. Now, following her instruction from the Manhattan Institute, who introduced broken windows police policy in New York, which led to a crackdown on the poor, Jenkins ended the bail reform program and is arresting more poor people. She and the neighbors group were manipulated by Oberdorf. The leader of the recall was an unemployed Indian named Siva Raj, who's not even a United States citizen. You don't seem excited. Don't you feel vindicated? You and the San Francisco Public School Board members were ridiculed internationally, made the butt of jokes on late night shows. East Coast columnists for the New York Times wrote columns applauding the defeat of wokeism. You were criticized for defending the 3. Mother Jones, The Atlantic Monthly, USA Today. Liberal and neoliberal publications joined those identified as leaders of hate groups by the Southern Poverty Law Center in their condemnation of Collins and Lopez.
I stood for principle.
Right. And you have no bitter feelings about losing your job at the San Francisco Chrysalis and Shachi Parmars Rolling?
Hell, watch it out. Shit, the odds are stacked against us. I sued the paper for $500,000. Given the attitude of the courts towards black men, I doubt whether they'll pay up.
There must be some satisfaction that the man who started a successful petition to boycott the newspaper where you had a column is now in hiding because of his connection with Siraj Udala, who is saber-rattling against the West. Before I came over here, a bulletin came across the wire. Siraj says that India is building an intercontinental missile, and when it's completed, they're going to aim it at the men's room in the Pentagon.
Look, his actions have already jeopardized the safety of Indian Americans. I mean, this announcement will only make things worse. That gives me no satisfaction at all. The sons and daughters of immigrants don't know these people the way we do. They're in primary school when it comes to racism. We have a PhD. When the Vietnamese voted for Trump, didn't they realize that this China card is scapegoating applied to them? Because the average American can't distinguish between them or Chinese. Vincent Chin was murdered because they mistook him for Japanese. They're like these Muslims in Michigan who voted for Bush Jr. only to have him invade Muslim countries, resulting in the deaths of thousands. I mean, as far as black Americans go, oh, each new batch of immigrants means more races to add to the homegrown ones. Look at the Nigerians. The most educated of all the immigrants, even more so than the Asians. The British really did a number on them. See, they don't want the reputation of black Americans to be foisted upon them. Nigerian and Caribbean cab drivers treat black Americans like shit in New York. Nigerians take it all in movie roles in Hollywood.
Could it be that they're better actors?
That famous got paid twice.
I don't follow.
Well, first, their ancestors got paid for selling us into slavery. Now their descendants get paid for their portrayal of black slaves. Like a boxing remote in the New York Review of Books, Howard French has nominated Nigerians as the next model minority. Will the most recent model minority, Asian Americans, have to engage Nigerians in a match? Or who will be the favorite model minority? Will it be broadcast on pay-per-view? Think of the revenue. Then there are the Hispanics. Some of them are the most dedicated to white nationalism, even though the whites want to deport them or prevent them from entering the United States. I mean, the head of the Proud Boys is a Mexican.
He's Cuban. May we move on? Collins and Lopez wanted to rename San Francisco high schools, named for some of the most revered names in American history.
That's not true. That was California State Assembly member Matt Haney who proposed to rename it when he was president of the board for the San Francisco Unified School District. he objected to schools being named after dead white men with problematic histories. He was inspired by football player Colin Kaepernick nearly when the Star-Spangled Banner was played. Yet it was the corporate press that was responsible for the ignorant mob stampede that blamed Collins and Lopez for the renaming.
Aren't your rants why one of the mainstream critics dismissed you as a crank?
My critics were bamboozled by fake news.
Shashi Parmar didn't think so.
He's the one being pursued now, isn't he? He has to learn what others who are the children of immigrants have to learn.
What's that?
That the fate of immigrants is tied to their country's of origin. The Italians and Germans learned that. You know, Mussolini was a hero of this country. FDR even sent observers to examine his socialist projects. Cole Porter had a line in his song. You're the top. You're Mussolini. But because of the actions of his fascist thugs and the invasion of Ethiopia, the U.S. turned against him. Churchill was an early admirer of Hitler. But when Italy and Germany declared war on the United States, local Italians and Germans paid. And their movements were restricted, some were placed in camp. By choosing white nationalism, they've chosen the losing side. The average white doesn't understand this. The 1% we'll sacrifice them if it meant saving capitalism.
Would you respond to the observation by David Lee, a political science lecturer at San Francisco State University, who said that their triumph in recalling Collins was a case of Chinese Americans flexing their muscles?
How is a victory over Black and Hispanic parents and children using billionaires' money and the resources of right-wingers who don't even have children in San Francisco schools a triumph? Or a case of parents flexing their muscles? And why don't they flex their muscles against these crazy-ass white people that are assaulting them in the streets? Why don't they flex their muscles by insisting that Chinese history and Latinx history be given as much weight in elitist high schools as Anglo studies? Why must the emphasis be on Anglo studies? I mean, why not Hindi studies or Chinese studies? Hindi is the world's third most spoken language. Founded in the 5th century, India's Nalanda University is believed to be the world's first residential university, established more than 500 years before Oxford. At its peak, Nalanda hosted over 10,000 students from around the world and was considered one of the greatest centers of learning in the ancient world.
San Francisco Chronicle journalist Gary Camilla says that we should honor Washington despite his shortcomings.
Gary Camilla has a stage 4 case of Negrophobia. I mean, George Washington broke up slave families and committed genocide against Native Americans. He sold slave children to pay his debt and sold one slave for rum. I mean, he believed that Native Americans should be exterminated. That's like saying, we shouldn't judge Hitler on the basis of his shortcomings.
You have a guest?
Melody Wells. This is Holly.
Oh, nice to meet you.
She's from the East Bay View.
Oh.
She's interviewing me about the recall.
Oh, okay. Well, Warren lost his column over his opposition to the recall, and now he's in debt.
Yes, tell me about it.
I have enough savings to last a few months. Can't get my op-eds published. Mainstream publications prefer writers from the Anglo-Indian diaspora.
Why do you think that is?
What is?
The establishment's preference for writers from the Anglo-Indian diaspora.
And they are intellectual busboys. Gunga Dins with Ivy League degrees.
Gunga who?
Gunga Din. Gunga Din appears in a poem by Rudyard Kipling, the poet of British imperialism. He created this Indian who died while carrying water to a wounded British soldier, even though the soldier's wounds resulted from the soldier's battle with other Indians called Thuggees, which is the origin of the word thug. The Hollywood Raj, British actors like David Niven, Ronald Colman, Cary Grant, and George Sanders participated in films whose purpose was to justify British colonialism. Their film, Gunga Din, was their most powerful piece of propaganda. It was screenwriter Joel Serra who stereotyped the Thuggees. He plays Gunga Din in his own imposter script, one that demeans the goddess Kali. These films were used to justify British expansion in India, like the Black Panthers were used to declare war on Black America.
Now, recently, there has been a proliferation of Gunga Dins carrying water for the white right. If Gunga Din was cast today, instead of a white man in blackface playing the role of Gunga Din, they could cast the British Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. When asked by a black MP whether England should apologize for the slave trade, Sunak replied, no. What I think our focus should now be on doing is, of course, understanding our history in all its parts, not running away from it. But right now, making sure that we have a society which is inclusive and tolerant of people from all backgrounds. He said, while carrying water for the British, by refusing to apologize for the genocide committed against not only Africans, but Indians. Shit. Even this doddering old fool that's now king says that an apology is something to consider. I mean, Tony Blair said something similar. Even the king of the Netherlands apologized for slavery. And in the U.S., we have no sniveling, cringing, just a shuffling Uncle Dan named Sabi Kumar. He told the two justices who were expelled from the Tennessee State Senate that they should assimilate. Become one of us. When one of the justices accused him of providing a minority face on white racism, this Uncle Den's white support is called foul. Now, a pioneer Uncle Den is Dinesh D'Souza. Now, he made a living by criticizing the lack of morality among blacks, only to be arrested for a felony. It took Trump to pardon him. Then they had Matthew Dens, who had been brought in by the Anglo establishment to act as literary patrollers of black male writers. Like Kermit Mahajan, who scolded Colson Whitehead for including black male characters free of misogyny and sexual violence. They and other upper caste Indians have been hired to accuse black men of misogyny and sexual assault.
Well, that's funny and hypocritical. If you want to find misogyny and sexual assault, there's plenty in India. Not only do Indians hate blacks, but they have problems with the darker-skinned members of their own families. You've got moms beating African students, and a woman from Tanzania was stripped by a mob and marched through the streets. They're still into feticide, aborting girl infants. Thousands of children are out on the streets prostituting themselves. In India, a woman belongs to her husband and her in-laws. Some old Sanskrit texts determine the treatment of women, like the Kama Sutra, the Nangaranga, the Koka Shastra, alongside epics and foundational treaties, like the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, and the Manusmriti. Things have not changed since Ruqayya Sequatla Saint wrote her short story Sultana's Dream in 1905, which, by the way, predicts the use of solar energy. For instance, she said, "We have no hand or voice in the management of our social affairs. In India, man is lord and master. He has taken to himself all powers and privileges and shut up the women in the zanana."
How would you know those things?
She's an Indian. While her family had to flee, being dark-skinned, she could blend in.
Oh. I thought she was a sister. Dark skin and advantage?
What? More here than in India. I mean, Warren and I wouldn't be allowed to have a relationship if we were in India.
But black Indians and black Americans have had a long history of intimate relationships. Because white racism was directed not only at the Chinese and Japanese in California, but Indians too. Now, you've heard of Yellow Peril.
Yes.
How the Chinese threatened the superiority of white men. Well, tied to turbans was also viewed as a threat. In 1907, Indian immigrants were beaten by a mob in Bellingham, Washington. I mean, there were Chinese and Japanese exclusion acts, but in 1917, there was an exclusion act aimed at Indians and other Asians.
Yeah, in 1923, Indians who lived in the United States were ineligible for citizenship. Like blacks, they were outcasts, but they found refuge in black zones. In New Orleans, Bengalis married black women. South Asian Muslims started families with black women in New York. The Hart-Celler Act of 1965 made it possible for doctors, engineers, entrepreneurs, and others to migrate from India like my parents did. And working class Indians who found harbor in black communities were excluded. Anglo Indians brought their casteism with them. They not only applied it to their fellow lower caste Indians, but to black Americans who they cast as Dalits, the caste that Americans call untouchables. But black Indian women have more freedom in the United States than in India. In India, untouchable women are raped by touchables. Every week, 13 Dalits are murdered and 6 are kidnapped. In 2012 alone, the year of the Delhi gang rape and murder, 1,574 Dalit women were raped. The rule of thumb is that only 10% of rapes and other crimes against Dalits are ever reported. And 651 Dalits were murdered. But that's just the rape and the butchery, not the stripping and the parading naked. The forced shit-eating, literally. The seizing of land. The social boycotts. The restriction of access to drinking water. India is a horrible place for a woman and a Dalit. Well, being black might be a boon. For you. But life for black women in the United States hasn't been a lottery prize. No bonus. We have been abused, raped, tortured. Some husbands and boyfriends, like subjugated, outgunned men everywhere, take out their frustrations on us, black women, who once were slaves. But one thing about the sisters, we retaliate. Indian women are still slaves in India and inherit homes that treat women and girls as if they were living in India. I was destined to be a slave until I read Bell Hooks and Entuzake Shange. Before reading them, I had as much fight as a lotus blossom. Reading Toni Morrison has also liberated women in China, India, South America, and elsewhere. These black American women writers have the freedom to say what women in other countries are prevented from saying. Entuzake Shange was broke and ill toward the end of her life. Because she didn't earn the kind of money that even mediocre whites receive for their creative works. But calling out the white feminist movement for its racism, the late Bell Hooks was confined to teaching at a small college in Kentucky. She said that she became so frustrated with white bourgeois feminists lacking empathy for her position as a black woman that she would run out of her sessions with them in tears. After Toni Morrison won the Nobel Prize, the Princeton Klan burned down her house. One of her sons had to jump out of a window to escape the fire, and the fire department took its own good time getting there. Yes, the global sisterhood was inspired by their bold challenge of the patriarchy. But where was the sisterhood when they needed support? That little tin-horn weasel of a governor has banned Bell Hooks books from the curriculum. Why aren't the feminists who worship her at the Florida State Capitol protesting? That's right. Yep. Entuzake and Hooks died young. Challenging the patriarchy in this country took a toll on the three of them. They paid dearly for their defiance. As for the oppression of Indian women by men, well, these men are your brothers, your fathers, all people with DNA ties to you. In the United States, our problems are caused by an occupation force, people of a different race. You have your statistics about Dalits. I have mine about black women. Want to hear? Go ahead. Hypertension is more prevalent among African American women than any other group of women. And while white women are more likely to have breast cancer, African American women have higher overall mortality rates for breast cancer.
African American women experience unintended pregnancies at 3 times the rate of white women. Chlamydia and gonorrhea infection rates among African American women are 19 times higher than those of white women. African American women have higher rates of cervical cancer, with mortality rates double those of white women. African American women represent 65% of new AIDS diagnoses among women. The most current available data shows that African American women made 64 cents to the dollar compared to white non-Hispanic men in 2010. White women made 78.1 cents to the same dollar. Some black men can be stupid, clownish, or even cruel in their interactions with women, but they don't run this place. It was a majority white male and Catholic Supreme Court who returned poor women to back alley abortions or saddled them with children they can't support. Black men don't run the jails where black women are raped by guards. They don't own the hospitals where black women are more likely to die in childbirth or have their infants die. They don't own the banks where, because of redlining, blacks are consigned to rental status. And it was Columbia University who stood by while one of their own doctors, Robert A. Haddon, sexually assaulted hundreds of women, not black men. Your playing at being a black woman is like these men who imitate women, and they wouldn't last a month of menstrual cramps. Like them, you have options that black women love. When things lighten up for Indians, you can re-enter your middle-class status. While for millions of black women, there is no exit.
I get your point. You must come to my gender equity class. I can offer you an honorarium.
That won't do this. I can do it without an honorarium. I can write about it in the newspaper.
I'm glad you guys resolved that. For a minute, I thought it was going to dissolve into a cat fight.
Excuse me?
I mean, it's not real chippy.
Men are the ones involved in a cat fight. From the time of their birth to their death, they fight over who's the king of the jungle. What time is it? I have to get going.
I'll call it.
Oh, where are you going?
To my job at California College of the Arts?
I'll give you a ride.
Oh, not necessary. I'm riding my motorcycle today.
All right,
Well, thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
And good luck with everything.
Oh, I have all the luck you can give me. Sorry. Everything. You. All right. Did I say something wrong?
Yes.
It's like the cat. Yeah.
Commentary by Gabriel Noah-Talpin, former professor at an Ivy League university, where the radical faculty and students hounded him for espousing views that, for his critics, were politically incorrect. A proud Pacific Islander and leader of the local English-only movement, so dedicated is he to Anglo values, he committed his parents to a nursing home because they continued to refer to him by his given barbaric name. He warned them that he had changed his name like Nikki Haley. And other Americans who want to get ahead. This brave woman of immigrant parents has been the subject of scurrilous rumors promoted by the far left. That she had an affair with Donald Trump, and he broke off the affair, and that's why she ran against him. Everybody knows she had a crush on Daniel Petty, the tall, blonde ex-Marine and college student who killed Jordan Neely. Pest bothering New York subway riders. Not Trump. Like Mrs. Haley, Mr. Know-It-All-Day has been harassed by the radical far left. Mr. Know-It-All-Day is recipient of the Manhattan Institute's Angler of the Month Award. We are very happy to have him back on the show. Welcome.
I was musing the other day about what would have become of me had I not graduated from Lowell High School and Princeton. Would I have lived my life out on some isolated Pacific island, spending hours waiting for a coconut to fall from a tree? Out swimming sharks for quarters, a kayak, my only mode of transportation. Telling time, my phases of the moon. Oh, having a monkey run errands for me. Communicating with friends through a Concord instead of social media. Worshipping a volcano. Fortunately, my parents had the good sense to migrate to the United States, where I could get a good education, suffer the brightest minds of mankind. That dream was interrupted by a firebrand who would challenge those lofty goals, mediocrities, in the words of Gary Kamiya, who wanted to travel down a racial bandwagon. Well, extending his metaphor, that racial bandwagon has run out of gas. One of those disrupting the anglicization of the global community is this madcap Siraj-ud-Dowlah of India. He wants Hindi to be the official language and then English be dropped. He wants to change the name of Mumbai to Lakshmibai after a woman who led an uprising against the British, certainly intended to poke the British in the eye. I have maintained my silence today, preferring that British-trained Indian commentators in the East criticize him. But now, I will hold my peace no longer. That's because he's criticized my hero, Lord Mountbatten. India's madcap Prime Minister, Siraj-ud-Dowlah, has taken the side of a family suing the crown over a scandal involving Lord Mountbatten, one of the noblest men to walk the earth, the late Queen's uncle. They claim that Lord Mountbatten had the practice of abusing Indian boys. At a press conference, the deranged leader said, "Oh, maybe there's something to Mountbatten's abuse of Indian boys." The British ambassador to India protested, but the Indian Prime Minister, whose grandfather, an old die-hard nationalist, gave him the ridiculous name Siraj-ud-Dowlah after the last independent Nawab of Bengal, an extremist who was unwilling to accept the British demand that Indians accept civilization. The Nawab gave the British all they could handle until, well, the British were able to obtain a loyal Anglo-Indian who could implement his downfall and murder. That assassin deserves a statue. Siraj shrugged off the protest. He began to side more with the family that was suing the crown over Mountbatten's monstrous perversions, as his enemies called it. Siraj-ud-Dowlah's entry into politics was a total surprise to his friends, many of whom spent much time with him in London and Paris, in cafes and coffee shops, in nightclubs and film festivals. He was a veritable playboy, dating models and celebrities and movie stars. But then that political bug hit, and Siraj-ud-Dowlah worked his way up from backbencher to prime minister. The British did not like the prime minister's insults that he hurled on a regular basis, but Siraj fired back. He kept coming. He called the Prime Minister of England a Bakri Chode, which in Hindi means goat fucker. street of the Indian Prime Minister's remarks. The British Prime Minister was so angry he threw a glass of wine against the wall. Siraj's mental capacity was questioned, India was called a rogue nation, and now this madman wants to unite India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, a division that was promoted by, according to this far-left firebrand, by Winston Churchill. This is Gabriel Noatalde, signing off till next time. Tally-ho, and God save the king.
There's not a dry eye here in the studio after listening to this martyr. A man who was sacrificed on the altar of wokeness. Until tomorrow, this is Hedda Buttermilk Duckbill. The White Lanky Network.
Again, they just broadcast a program about Lord Mountbatten.
A wonderful man. He did so much to civilize our people. According to my parents, it was Mountbatten and Churchill that brought India into the 20th century.
What? Man, 3 million Indians died through Churchill's policies, according to a book that I read.
That's nonsense. Who wrote such a thing?
It's in Churchill's Secret War. The British Empire and the ravaging of India during World War II by Madhusi Mukherjee.
Never heard of her.
Well, Prime Minister Siraj Udala said something similar. He was being interviewed by the BBC. He said that by using a policy of divide and conquer, Churchill was responsible for splitting India into India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. And India was better off under the Mughals. I mean, Churchill used the excuse that the master race should rule its inferiors to bleed India dry, sending rights and other goods to English populations and other white nations like Australia.
That's ridiculous. And this fellow, Suraj Udala, is ruining all of the goodwill that has been built between Indians and our English mentors over the decades. He's responsible for the pressure put on us in the diaspora.
Oh, that's a result of your Anglo education.
A Eurocentric education is vital to getting ahead.
Then why did some of those so eager for a Eurocentric education demand ballots printed in Chinese?
That's because many of those who opposed the 3 school board members were born in China.
Yeah, and I bet the real Chinese were glad to get rid of them. They're collaborators, like you. So eager to get back onto my people.
They study hard. Unlike blacks, who are living in festering filth on Market Street, creating diseases that have jumped to the general population, engaging in flash looting of small businesses, and selling fentanyl. But even with that, they're better off here than in Africa. We don't basket case.
So you don't know shit about Africa. You know, all you knew was about blacks here and abroad from white networks and local news. I mean, why was reading these black authors? Du Bois, Gerald Horne, Annette Gordon Reed, Chet Diop, John Henry Clark.
Yeah.
Probably feel-good history. Is there any phenomenon in the universe that black people don't regard as racist? You object to black holes? Do you call that?
Yes.
Your God, Krishna, is black. Krishna is the Hindi word for black. Copy that.
How do you know all these things about India?
I have a good tutor.
Oh.
That'll be a relief. We did everything we could to fit in. Paid our taxes, drove our children and their classmates to soccer game practice. I bought new grills to make barbecue and invited them over to watch football. Where did we go wrong? All the things I did to salvage Western civilization.
Western civilization. Western civilization. The Outback originated in Afro-Asia. The British philosopher Bertrand Russell wrote, "The contribution of India to mathematics is the zero." And that's the greatest contribution of all. Einstein wrote, "Without India's numerals, China's paper, and Korea's movable typing symbols, there'd be no science." If scientific works had been translated from Arabic to Latin, you would have the Spanish Renaissance. And while I'm at it, the influence of African architecture. Around the world over, from Timbuktu to Santa Fe, New Mexico, without terrorists, a black Roman playwright, you have no Shakespeare.
All right.
Euclid, the father of man, was an African.
That can't be. You're a liar. My professor said that Euclid was white based on his pictures.
Nobody knows what he looked like. He never traveled outside of Africa. Meet my two.
¿Quién es my boyfriend? Ik was een परिवार की बेइज्जती करती हो।
कौन सा परिवार? वहाँ जो मेरे साथ निगर जैसे भी व्यवहार करते हैं?
Bigger things. We're going to Canada. From there, we're going to plane to India.
No, I'd rather die than go to India. I'd be a Dalit, I'd be a slave. As an unmarried woman, I'd be a Ganika, a loose, promiscuous woman. Married women don't fare any better. They're considered hot, available to men other than their husbands.
Damn. I thought the brothers were bad.
I don't care anymore of your nonsense. I said, get your things.
Oh, hey, y'all chill. This ain't.
Oh, my arms! You're hurting me!
Oh, look.
Baby, stop!
You better get going.
You all right, girl?
You let him slap me like that? And you did nothing?
If I had done something, you would accuse me of hypermasculinity. Or toxic masculinity. I get the terms mixed up.
You're impossible sometimes!
Carla. Baby, let's order lunch. All right, that'll make you that'll make you grown up. My treat.
I'm not having lunch with you today. You can eat by yourself and be by yourself.
Carla. Baby. I love you. Man, I can get you a massage. And always calm you down. So in between your toes.
Oh. You think I can be appeased by a few strokes in the right places like some kind of house pet? Go massage yourself!
Oh, Carla. Baby, come on back, man. We gotta talk about this. Baby, come on. Don't go all the way down here now. You ain't gotta go shit. Oh, she must go. She must leave. Yeah, she gone. She's like it.
White Lightning Network. More breaking news. Edward Bloom, fresh from his victory for Chinese American students at Harvard was making a speech before the San Francisco Commonwealth Club when members of the Oath Keepers, the Star Spangled Boys, the Proud Boys, and the Boogaloo Boys, the 3%ers, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Kanye West, and the late Pope Benedict, accompanied by other anti-Semitic zealots, stormed the stage. He was able to escape and was last seen hauling ass down Market Street.
She'll return. And sometimes with these new rules, it's hard to know the best way to act. Now, if I had hit her brother, she could have sided with her brother against me. I mean, no matter what these new theories, blood is bigger than water. Now, this new Underground Railroad is different from the old one. I had no altruistic motives. Unlike the benevolent white woman that provided the first stop for Harry Tubman. I get checks. I'm being paid from a mysterious Indian billionaire that's paying people to hide Indians until they can escape the United States. Oof. Shashi Palmer was my fifth passenger. The other four were like Shashi. Shocked that their white friends disowned them when they were in flight. They called me and asked me if I would hire Shashi. They said that they knew he started the petition that led to my firing from the Chrysalis. The publisher apologized. He was almost in tears. He said that he had come under pressure from the billionaire investors at the paper that were pro-recall. I needed to check my trip out of here, so I told him I forgot about it. After all, I had got my revenge on that pompous sucker. It was me that put the anti-American slogans up in his apartment. And the animal gods and goddesses. It was easy. I told the doorman that I was the plum. Then he left me in the Shasha's apartment. Now, as for Hindi, I've been taking a battle course. Then I anonymously tipped off Homeland Security about the subversive material in his apartment. Kyle and I will escape in the opposite direction. Mexico. Oh, I'm still young enough to escape from this overflowing outhouse that's become America. I'm not gonna wait around till time runs out. Blacks and browns can wait around another 100 years for the right to vote. Not me. I mean, Albert Einstein and Thomas Mann got out of Germany when they came was good, and those that remained, they didn't see the signs. If I stick around, I might get murdered after being stopped for a minor traffic infraction. Like a broken brake light. Or because of the air freshener hanging in my rearview mirror, or because some vigilante finds me in the wrong neighborhood. When I might be sitting in my apartment watching TV and a cop takes my place from Earth and shoots me. Thinking I'll be a shooter. Followed in department stores, under suspicion and slave patrolled 24 hours per day. If I was sent to prison because of some prosecutorial misconduct, a corrupt district attorney or a lying cop, to get the fuck up out of here like a prison break. I'll go to Nacimiento de los Negros in the state of Coahuila in Mexico. But Juneteenth is celebrated each year. No worries about whenever someone commits a public atrocity. I don't have to hold my breath till I find out he's not black. Praying with the men they elect are nice to blacks. I mean, so what future for me is there in this country? Fuck this country. I mean, 20 years ago, I was with Martin Luther King Jr. That we would reach the promised land. I was with Malcolm X, who said the ballot or the bullet. And he's the one that took the bullet. So fuck the promised land. And fuck the ballot. I'm now with Reverend Wright. God damn the United States of America. I'm out of here.
I came to get your response to the news.
What news?
The San Francisco Chrysalis has settled. You win $500,000.
Hold on, what?
$500,000 plus back pay and an apology.
They said the thing, never.
Warren, you won the case. The San Francisco Chrysalis folded.
This is the thing. You know, I was going to give up the fight. I thought that I'd flee the country. And Kyle and I would go to Mexico.
What? Mexico? Whatever gave you the idea to go to Mexico with you? You must be crazy. I'm not going to no damn Mexico. You're kidnapping black Americans there.
I know what I'm going to do.
What's that?
I'm going to run for school board. Finish the work that Gabrielle and Allison started. I mean, they put their lives and their families' lives in jeopardy. They were hounded by liberals as well as members of the malignant right. But even after their enemies had defeated them, they continued to be threatened and vilified. I won't forget what the late Michael Harper said.
Oh, I know his name. He wrote Nightmare Begins Responsibility.
Right. He said that there was no place for him in the school curriculum. All of us, Black, Asian American, Latino, Native American, we must find a place for the Michael Harpers of the world. The stories that are left out because of their zeal to anglicize us. I mean, if we don't cover the histories and cultures of others and what is taught, gangs will be there to offer an alternative tradition. I'm gonna need your help.
If we sign on, I promise you that we won't start a cat fight.
That's not the only dumb thing I said that you won't let me let down. I got a bottle of wine I saved for special occasions. Let's cork it open.
Okay.
Who's there?
This is Ed Bloom. I understand you're a conductor.
Sorry, Ed. I'm retired. Coming up for a glass of wine. We'll work something out. I can give you some leads.
Why did you invite the person who made it harder for blacks and Latinos to enter Harvard for a drink?
And give him some leads?
Look, everyone should have a second chance. Maybe we can redeem them. After all, I've been redeemed. What's so funny?
Nothing. Cheers.
Something seems to be a joke. I'm
play on the Conductor. When I came in, I'm thinking it was one meaning, and then leaving, it's a whole different vibe. Still the same meaning, but just different take on it. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I came.
This is something that we need to change in terms of this country. So I hope you can do it more.
I've been a fan of yours for many, many years. I discovered your writing while I was at Syracuse University. Yellowback Radio book actually had me in stitches, but it was so relevant. The play that I saw today, I love your blending of history with the present as well as the future.
Good understanding of history and what it means today, and where we are today, and where we came from. Thank you very much. Excellent talk. The play was wonderful. The thing I really liked about the play was that it was on point, and it was it really covered a lot of issues that people seem to be confused about, and mainly who they are and where they are. I loved it.
I was moved by so many things. I loved the history, I loved hearing, but also thinking about the conductor. I was watching him and I got feelings because you're thinking, oh, it's a modern day conductor and he's doing a good thing and he's leading people but then all of a sudden when it changes and you realize he's only doing it for himself, all of a sudden I had a different feeling. But then in the end when he changes, when he realizes that he is not that person, I just had certain feelings about it. I also wondered about the feelings of his girlfriend, how she would feel if she knew that he was the one that set up her brother. How would she feel?
Yeah, thank you for writing this. I do have a couple comments. So I think that there's more to being a woman than menstrual cramps, and trans women deserve our solidarity and respect. And number two, it's not toxic masculinity to defend your girlfriend from a fight. So thank you for this work. Thank you so much.
I think this was really a very adventurous piece. It challenges playwriting notions, being very polemic, very didactic almost, not so, and the sly usage of metaphors are in the quotes. So if people don't understand that, I think they lose the significance of how it relieves the very heavy worded things, and we hear history in a very different way. Sort of turns the history, upside down, and I can see the trajectory of the road that you, Ishmael, have traveled over the years. How you start out avant-garde in a very creative way, a very subversive way that gets transported to now where you incorporate very current things. And today's audience, people really were understanding, and I think it gives a very strong understanding of how history is contiguous and at the same time repeats itself. It's a very, very strong script, very heavy worded, took a lot of reading and research, which is what we did in the 60s, you know, and I'm very proud of you to continue in a very strong way what was done in the past. I think it was a really tour de force. It really was a very fine script and sensitivity that I think people don't always attribute to you. I love the subtlety of the music in the back. I heard it. And I was very, very pleased with that.
As an artist, as an actor, we seldom get pieces that allow us to, one, explore range, information, text, and characters that aren't characterizations of humans. So I really appreciate Ishmael giving us true life in all of our characters that represent people in the diverse ways that we show up.
It truly was an honor to be part of Ishmael Reed's play, and especially this conversation, which is so trending, evolving day to day. And with this cast and crew who are just very welcoming, hopefully we get to do it again. Is all I can say, because I would just not want this to be the last. So it's been a lot of fun playing this character and bringing this conversation to life. A living newspaper, as he says.